Why don't you give that a go?
Consider it hit
Cool.
live.
All right. We'll just wait another 30 seconds. Get started. All right, let's do it. Time is of the essence here. We want to maximize our time together. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for the Fundamentals of a Great Website webinar, which is also being live streamed. So definitely excited to be sharing all this insights. Keystone Click is a strategic digital marketing agency. We help our clients build brand awareness and generate leads online. We do that by conducting research and collecting insights that allow us to build a plan really focused on our clients' goals. I'm Lori Hybe, CEO and founder of Keystone Click. I've got over 20 years digital marketing experience. With the majority of my experience in the digital space, I have some traditional experience as well. My co-host today is Will Jurgensen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Lori and I. As Lori said, I am Will Jurgensen, the Director of Client Experience here at Keystone Click. And as has become tradition, Lori and I are here to kick off the fundamentals of a great website to really continue this webinar mini series that we've been producing here at Keystone Click over the last year or so. And we are incredibly excited about episode 1. And as Lori and I will speak to throughout our presentation today, a lot of what we will cover today will be taken into a deep dive into our further webinars. So be sure to check those out as well. Let's take a quick look at today's agenda. So as the topic says, website fundamentals. Then we're going to take a little bit of a deeper look into the technical side of building and designing a website, the user experience, as I'm sure and hope many of you have heard before how important user experience is. The last component today is really going to cover content and that content strategy. And then last but not least, we will open it up for questions. So please, by all means, throughout today's conversation, if something pops into your head, you have a question, feel free to type it into the chat. For those who may be viewing us on Facebook, you can also chat, put it into the chat section as well, or the comment section on Facebook. And we'll be sure to take some time here at the end of today's presentation to make sure we cover all of those questions.
Indeed. Excited to dive into it. Before we go into it, if you find something of value, of interest, take a screenshot, post it on social media, let us know what you learned or something that helps you out, and give us a tag in it for an opportunity to win this book, Secrets of Ad Agency Owners, the biggest marketing mistakes I've ever seen. Yours truly actually has a chapter on the topic of blogging in this book. Okay, now let's get into the guts. Website fundamentals. What do we got going on here, Will?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you can imagine, right, when in today's digital world, especially with everything that we've been going through recently, your website has become so much more important. But what we're here to do today is not just talk about why you need a website, but ultimately, what is the purpose of your website? For example, is your website intended to provide information, some type of interaction, or possibly entertainment? There are a lot of websites out there, as I'm sure we can all attest to, that are designed to transact some sort of business, right? Whether that's e-commerce, whether it's you're selling other additional services, or ultimately just providing information for your potential buyers to come and read about. A website is the one piece on the internet for the most part that you truly own. And so we want to remind you to, in fact, own it. And with that, websites don't sleep, Lori, is that correct?
That is true. And I just wanted to comment. Were you about to say interwebs?
I
You were
might have wanted to slip in internet there. Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I just wanted to call you out of that. Actually, what I like to say is that your website is your 24/7 salesperson. It is always working for you if it's built the right way. And that's really what we're going to try to dive into today, is making sure that your website is helping you achieve the goals that you have within your business. So first and foremost, before you even get started designing anything or developing anything, you have to think about the overall structure of the site. How are you going to organize the information? And this is something that's really important. And the term that's used in the industry is information architecture. How are you going to include or organize the information that you want to tell people what it is that you're doing? You want to make it easy for them to find that. So that main navigational item at the top, at the absolute max, should be 7 items. You don't want to go more than that. I've seen some main navigations that have 10 or 13, or there's double rows. That's just confusing people. That's not making it easy for them. Your goal is to make it easy for someone to find the piece of information that it is that they're looking for. And that's why that next bullet point of no more than 3 clicks. Anything on your website should really be easily found within 3 clicks. If not, then there's some architectural issues out there. The other thing that's really important to think about is the URL structure. You want to make it easy for people to understand what's happening and how to find information. So we have the home page. We'll say, this is keystoneclick.com is the home page. And then it's services and then website design. So that architecture should be /services/website design. And then if there's another offering, another service offering, it would fall under keystoneclick.com/services/marketing strategy. So the URL structure is just as important as the overall information architecture. And this is going to help you from an SEO standpoint. It's going to help you from a user experience standpoint. And these are all things that we're going to dive into in just a moment here.
Yes, absolutely. And as Lori mentioned, right, we're covering kind of the basics here, ultimately the fundamentals of a website. So as we can all relate, there are a lot of different services out there, whether you're trying to design your own website for maybe your micro or solo business, or you're a big company and you're designing the website. A lot of these basics are going to be true throughout the design process. So let's just kind of briefly hit on any of them. A layout, right? So a layout is the way graphics, ads, or even the text are arranged on the page, right? Simplicity here is key. The color might seem like it's a pretty obvious one, like, oh yeah, I need to add some color, but it's not just about having color. It's about really leveraging your color scheme for that brand target's audience. So again, putting yourself in the user experience shoes, trying to understand how the color, appeals to the flow of the website as a whole. And just as color, fonts can also make or break your appearance on the web. Readability is going to be key when you're choosing your fonts for your website. Content, which we're going to take a much deeper dive into here momentarily, that's the combination of both visuals as well as written text. A lot of times we think of content, we just think of the words that are on the page, but the visuals are important there as well. Navigation, Lori hinted at it there briefly, but this is how your users are going to browse and search your website. So you need to really spend some time and understand the importance of navigation. Multimedia. So this is the video and the audio content, as a lot can, again, relate to. Video is so hot right now, right? Whether it's your hero or your header image when you land on the website, this is a growing medium, and being able to integrate video and audio into websites is going to be incredibly important. And then the last term here is just interactive. Interactive elements like email forms and newsletter signups are going to be really important to your brand, and a lot of them are in relationship to the calls to action. So, these interactive experiences are going to give you the opportunity to really interact with the site visitors and then ultimately convert them into customers or convert them into advocates, right? Whatever the purpose of that site is, how your users are able to interact with your site is going to be really important.
Well stated, Will. Nicely done. Let's dive into the technical components of a website. Not necessarily the sexiest area of a site, but it's extremely critical for a number of reasons. And we're going to start with the content management system. Will, you want to dive into this a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. We have a lot of clients who, the knowledge on content management system, or CMS, as it's abbreviated, it ranges so far and few between, the understanding of what exactly a CMS is. So we wanted to just kind of give you a better understanding. A CMS is a software that allows you to create, manage, and modify content on a website, really without the need for specialized technical knowledge. So that's really where this important piece comes in, right? So you are an expert in whatever field you are an expert in, and the vast majority of us may not be experts in website design or the back end coding or front end coding of a website, which is why I'm sure a lot of us are here. And that's why these CMSs are so important. I'm sure many of you have heard of WordPress, Drupal, Magento for an e-commerce site. These are going to be the most common CMSs that you'll hear about. And really a CMS is there to help you, build a website without needing to write all the code from scratch. It's ultimately going to handle all the infrastructure so that you can focus on the forward facing parts, on the parts of your website that the user is really interacting with and seeing whenever they land on your page.
And we're going to go really deep into content management systems in our next webinar, but that was a really nice high-level overview, Will. The next thing that I want to talk about, which is really important from the technical standpoint, is your website hosting. And then really, this is the place where your website, all the files live, the home for where your website actually lives. And a good way to think about this is a huge apartment complex is the server, and then the individual unit that you are renting is where the files for your website live on a server. And that's just the best way that I feel can describe that. So there's a couple of different things that we look at when deciding where a website should live. So there's a number of different ways to tackle this. First off, we don't own the servers, rather we have relationships with other hosting companies. But we want to make sure that our sites, or your site at the end of the day, should live on the server that best suits you. So first we're going to look at the traffic. And when we're looking at traffic, we're looking at how many people are coming to your site in a specific allotment of time. So think about this on your commute on the freeway. If there's too many cars going in the same direction, the ride's going to be slower. There's congestion that's happening. So if there's a huge volume of traffic to your website at one specific time, it's the same thing that's going to happen. It's going to slow it down. So in essence, what we're looking for from a traffic standpoint is making sure that we have enough lanes on the freeway to avoid any congestion. The next thing that we're looking at is the size of your website. So you don't want to put a Fortune 500 investment banking company in a 400 square foot storefront, right? Same thing. You wouldn't want to put a local baker in a huge corporate office building. That's not going to work either. At the end of the day, we need to make sure that the server environment is going to support the size of the website. And if you think about it, e-commerce sites where there's a lot of information, there's a ton of pages that are out there, there's a lot of heavy images, because images will help to sell the products that you have on your website, are ultimately going to be bigger. They're going to require more space on that server to store all of that information. The last thing that we look at is the level of security. Now, every single website definitely has to be secure. And the basic for that is the SSL. And we'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment here. But you have to think about how secure does the site need to be? What type of information is being transferred or collected? So if you're on an e-commerce site, you're plugging in your credit card information, you're going to want that website to be a lot more secure than just someone that's plugging in a contact form with a name and email address. And think about things even more important, such as your HIPAA compliance. That's a whole nother level of security. So if you're going online and looking at your healthcare information on a web-based portal, that's going to require a significantly higher level of security than a website that's just collecting some basic information. The other thing you want to think about when it comes to website hosting is actually the team involved in maintaining your hosting of your website. How are they taking care of the server? Because no different than your car, for example, it requires maintenance and upkeep. And so you want to make sure the server that your hosted site is living on is maintained, and there's a strong level of security and updates happening there, just like your website as well. Your website requires updates, and it's really important to do that to minimize any vulnerability or risks for getting hacked. And that's the next topic is
Lori,
website.
I'm gonna throw a quick public service announcement out there to those
All right.
attending today's webinar. You know, we have a lot of people, whether they're clients or not, reach out to us because of situations or issues that they run into with their hosting. My only recommendation is that you have a understanding of where your website is being hosted. You know, a lot of times, as Lori said, you probably aren't necessarily hosting it yourself. It's being done through a third party, but know where it's being hosted, know how to access that information, and please know how to get in touch with the right people, because a lot of times if there's an issue or something, you know, with your website, you know, one of the first things going to want to do is make sure that the hosting is up and running. So that's just my quick public service announcement. If you don't know where your website is being hosted, please take the time to make sure you have all of that information.
Valid point. That is something we do encounter occasionally. But let's talk about security. And it does tie into that. So at the end of the day, everyone is prone to some sort of risk. You know, no website is 100% immune to hackers and attackers. I mean, we see these headlines out there. But what you need to think about is what can you do? Well, as I mentioned, staying up to date on the security vulnerabilities and the software that you're using, even on your computer software. If you're logging into your website and you have a virus on your computer, there's vulnerabilities there because they could be accessing your login credentials for that website. Use strong passwords for your websites, for your servers, everything that you're doing. Monitor and back up your site. There's been times that we've had people call us because their site was hacked and they did not have a backup. So there was no way to just magically put it back up again. Rather, we had to try to find historical information on their site and try to rebuild it manually. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Amazon Web Services, your host oftentimes does a redundant backup of your site. So again, that's something you might want to talk about with your hosting provider. Who should be doing this? Well, your hosting provider. If you are working with another company to manage your hosting, they should be maintaining all of the security updates on your website and your server. If you have someone in-house managing this, then make sure that they're actually doing this. There's a number of times where we've actually acquired a website from somebody else, and we've learned by conducting an audit that a number of the security updates are really old and outdated and haven't actually been completed. And therefore, that's why they were having issues with their website at the end of the day. Well, why is it important? You know, we want to make it less easier for these individuals to be hacking our site. We don't want client information to be out there. We want to minimize any potential risks that could be happening. So it's just best to make sure that you're staying up to date with these security updates. No different than, you know, you're updating the software on your phone or on your computer. This has to happen with your website as well. Now something more fun.
Yeah, well, we're going to start this one off nice and simple. I'm going to have everyone take a look to your left. Now take a look to your right. If you've done that, you've probably located your cell phone, right? Everyone has a cell phone. Everyone's utilizing their cell phone. And yet, for some reason, a lot of websites out there are not built to be mobile friendly, as we just demonstrated, right? How quickly and easy is it when you're not in front of your computer? You're going to be pulling up websites. You're going to be doing and conducting research on maybe someone that or a company that you are interested in purchasing a product from or interested in buying a service from. It is incredibly important that our websites are responsive and AKA mobile friendly. So what's the best way to check if your website is mobile friendly? Well, put yourself in the driver's seat, you know, hop on your cell phone, pull up your website. You know, is your layout off kilter? You know, is it nearly impossible for you to read anything on your homepage? You know, these are indicators that your website might not be properly optimized from the mobile perspective. So some immediate steps to take on your site is to make sure that it's more mobile friendly. Manually adjust your layout in the mobile builder. You know, a lot of the CMSs that we discussed have this option. And this is going to include optimizing the text size, you know, the grid structures and the image sizes, so that when someone, a potential client or customer of yours, is doing their research on their mobile device, you are making sure that you come off with a great user experience.
I agree 100%. Speaking about user experience, this is one of the things that I find is often overlooked whenever someone is creating their own website. And we do what we refer to this as the billboard test. There's basically 3 very specific and clear questions that if you cannot answer these questions, you have to make changes to your website. The first one is it clear and obvious what you do, what you offer? And basically, it should be immediate upon landing on your page, any page on the site. It should be obvious to that site visitor what it is that you do, what you do, who you do it for, and ultimately, what is the benefit that they're going to receive by working with you. The next item is, what type of credibility do you have that you can actually do what it is that I'm looking for you to do? We need credibility. The internet is full of lies and, random pieces of knowledge that who knows what to trust. So you need to have, and we refer to this as a trust the box, something that's going to validate that you actually can do what it is that you're telling people you can do. And you use this by putting your awards out there, client testimonials, if you're able to use your client logos, if you've had any sort of media exposure, anything along those lines that, maybe there's some industry certifications or accreditations that you've acquired, having that front and center helps to build that credibility that you are a legitimate source and a trusted source to actually conduct business with them. And the last question is the CTA or call to action obvious? So basically, you've told me what it is that you do. You've proved that you can do it. Now what do I do next? Do you want me to fill out this form? Do you want me to schedule an appointment? Do you want me to buy the product? You need to make it easy for someone to do business with you. And if you're not making it easy, and I've experienced this actually, and I'm sure we all have experienced, we like what we're seeing, but we don't know what to do next. We don't know how to actually engage that company to start doing business with them. So you have to make it easy for that site visitor to actually start a conversation with you, buy your product, sign up for your event, whatever it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, Lori. Since I started at Keystone Click from when I first began to now being here almost 3 years, the way in which I view and look at websites when I first land on them has drastically changed. A lot of that is because of what I have been taught here, specifically by Lori and the other team members. And I want to encourage you to do the same. When you land on a website for the first time, go through kind of those steps, realize and try to understand, is it clear what they're offering you? Are they a credible source? And then ultimately, is it, easy to identify what action is that they want you to take? Because that is a representation of their brand and also a representation of your brand. So something to really hone in on. And as Lori ended that with, is the call to action obvious? A website or a web page without a call to action is a job half done. Although it depends on the intent of the content in the first place, right? So we talked at the beginning about what is the purpose of your website. You're going to want and have a better result if you have strong calls to action, phrases with proper backlinks, when the emotion is already high. So you want multiple calls to actions embedded in your blogs, embedded in pop-ups. Pop-ups don't really get a lot of love. And I'm sure we can all relate when something pops up and you're trying to find certain information. It's kind of annoying and it's disruptive, but that's also what's so great about them, right? A pop-up adds to the reader's experience, and it really provides offerings and resources right away and very quickly. It's a very quick call to action. Hey, we have a sale on this. Hey, we have a white paper that you can download with this information. You're really kind of just giving that information quickly. So even without pop-ups, it's really important to make sure that you do have strong calls to action based on that user experience and the intent and purpose of your website. So we just have an example here of Bamboo Reach, which is, a division of Keystone Click, where, in our header image and our hero, as you land on that site, there's already an opportunity to schedule a meeting. People are going to land in different parts of that buying or research journey. And we want to make sure that no matter where you are in that journey, we're providing calls to action throughout the website. And then website architecture. So Lori, again, spoke about this a little bit at the beginning, but we're looking here at the navigation, and navigation menus are traditionally found at the top of a browser, and they link to various areas within your website. So if designed correctly, users will easily be able to get from point A to point B without frustration. That's why your website architecture is so important, and you need to make sure you put the thought process in up front for what that user experience is. So to maximize the user experience, you should cut out the non-essentials and limit that navigation as much as possible. We recommend anywhere from 7 items in your navigation to less than that. This is an example, this is a perfect example of less is more scenario. Too many items in the navigation is going to overwhelm your site visitors and distract them from the high impact landing pages that you've taken time to build out and really are focused on to convert. So once you've determined what your menu items are, just arrange them accordingly. How we typically have it, and as you can see here is the about section to learn more about us. Happens first, and then the services, right? And people often ask, in regards to navigation menus, are drop-down menus best practice? In the design world, drop-down menus are quickly becoming kind of a thing of the past, if you will, right? Most web designers argue that using drop-down menus might be bad practice due to the fact that they're an additional decision the user must make. So if we're able to engage a user for one click, would you want to risk one more? So mitigate the risk of a user leaving your site by trying to eliminate how many options they have. And that's really where spending the time up front to focus on what that website navigation and architecture is going to play a really important role in that user journey on your website.
Well said. Let's talk about some content strategy now. And this is, I mean, all of these pieces play together actually at the end of the day. And so from an SEO perspective, there's a lot to look at. And this is, again, very high level. We've got another webinar that's going to go a little bit deeper or a lot deeper into this topic. But I bolded a couple words on this slide: content, story, statistics can be helpful, your keywords, your summary. I mean, at the end of the day, what you want to do is make sure that the content that you're creating is going to connect and resonate with your ideal customer, the person that you want to be engaging with you. And you first do that by conducting research. And so you figure out, what is the message that I need to say that is going to attract the attention of my audience? And then how am I going to populate that content into my website so that when someone does go to Google and type something in, my very well thought out, intelligent, added value piece of information is going to show up at the top of search engines there.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. People often ask about SEO, and I want to be found better, and I want to show up better, and how do I improve my SEO? And a lot of times we often say, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and what we've tried to at least do here is just simplify things a little bit. From an optimization standpoint, your title tags, your meta descriptions, your H1 tags, then you add in the actual content itself. Have you done the research to understand the keywords that need to be in that content? And then actually driving traffic, right? The popularity there, creating great social media posts that link back to your website. There's a lot of these things that you have to combine together to really optimize that search engine optimization.
When it comes to the content, oftentimes, instead of just throwing stuff out there, there's a couple of questions that you should really ask yourself before you even start creating that content. And first and foremost is understand who is digesting this information. Who is it that you are wanting and hoping to read the information, watch the information, listen to the information, however format you're ultimately going to produce this. And that's because you're trying to understand who that individual is and make it easy for them to digest that information. Then you want to say, where is this information going to live? Is it going to live on my website? Am I going to be pushing this on other pieces of information, such as a newsletter or social media? How are they going to be digesting this information as well? And that's where going back and saying, are these people looking on mobile phones and reading it while they're scrolling? Or are they going to be visiting my website on a tablet? Or are they going to be putting it on this huge projector while they're doing research in a corporate boardroom? So best understanding how your information is being consumed is going to help you to be strategic in what content you ultimately produce. And at the end of the day, you need to figure out what are the drivers that's going to help convert that reader to take action, whatever that call to action is. So figuring out, are they looking for some easy to use subscription tool? Are they looking for a comprehensive plan? Are they looking to buy a product or license your software? I mean, understanding the ins and outs of your customer and what they're trying to do, and then creating content that helps speak to that is what's going to make your life a lot easier at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I mean, that wraps up the meat of the fundamentals of website design. And as Lori and I have mentioned throughout today's webinar, we will be taking a much deeper dive into these components throughout this mini series. And what we did during our last mini series was we created a content strategy session, and it was incredibly successful and had a number of people find great value in it. And we wanted to make sure that we provided the same opportunity again. So for today's website strategy session offer, we have just that, a high-level website audit, as well as a navigation review, spending time with Lori going through your website, because it is the most integral aspect of your business. And as Lori and I mentioned, it is that 24-hour salesperson that doesn't sleep. And we want to make sure that it's functioning properly on the back end while providing that user just an amazing experience for all of your site visitors. So this strategy session is going to help equip you with the tools and knowledge that you're going to need to maximize your website's potential. To find out how to sign up for a strategy session, you can visit keystoneclick.com/website.
All right. Thank you, Will. In summary, we dove into the fundamentals of website, the technical aspect, understanding user experience, and content. We're definitely opening it up for questions. So if you've got them, this would be a great time to throw them in the chat or the Q&A session or the comment section on the Facebook Live. If you have any questions related to your website or you're interested in having a conversation about your website, feel free to reach out to Will or myself. And as we mentioned, the series right now that we're focusing on is all about web design. So we've got a number of topics scheduled out. Feel free to take a screenshot of this or just go to keystoneclick.com/webinars. And we've got a great new feature this time where you can actually just sign up once and we'll just subscribe you to all of the webinars, so you don't need to do every single one. But we're going to go deep into the different content management systems and talk a little bit more about the technical side and the pros and cons of different platforms on April 22nd. We're going to talk about the website customer journey or the experience and some best practices with that on May 13th. Cocktails and case study. I'm not going to share the client that we're going to be doing a case study with, but we're going to invite a client on May 27th. We're going to go really deep into content and SEO in June. And then we've got an amazing panel ready to go to talk about website design on June 24th. Again, keystoneclick.com/webinars. All right, we will open it up for questions.
Laura, I wanted to just make an announcement. I did correct the URL for the website strategy session and put that in the chat for anyone that is interested in that. And I tell you what, we do have a couple of really great questions. There is still time if you have a question throughout today's conversation that you would like. Lori, how long does it typically take to build a website?
Ooh, that is a good question. And you know what my favorite answer is?
I know. Can I just answer it for you?
Sure.
It depends.
It does. Well, there's a number of variables that go into play here. First off, if you come to us, we're going to say, how far along are you? Do you have that architecture mapped out, the navigation mapped out? Is your content ready to go? If it is, great. That's going to help expedite the process a little bit. If it's not, then that's going to require a little bit more time to flesh that out. The other variable that we want to look at is how complicated is the website that's being built. We've cranked out websites in 2 to 3 weeks before. We've also done sites that take 8, 9 months because of the complexity of what's happening on the site. We're integrating with other systems. So, my standard answer, it depends.
How about just to piggyback off that? How often should people be redesigning or restructuring their website?
That's another good question. So I'd say a good rule of thumb is every 3 years, you should be giving it a facelift. And think about it in this way. Again, referencing the phone that is like literally right next to me, as it is most of us. How often are you updating the phone that you're using? I mean, the technology, the browsers, your computers, all of this technology continues to advance. Same thing, the technology that your website was built on eventually starts to get old and stale and decays. So you need to keep current with this. And part of that goes back to the security updates that we talked about, but also using the latest and greatest, best practices when it comes to developing a site. Great
Awesome.
questions.
Yeah, and I know we're going to cover this in the June 10th webinar, but I do think it's also just important to highlight it here while we have everyone. How much content should someone have on each of their website's pages?
Well, a little bit of it depends as well. What is the goal of that page? If you're looking from an SEO perspective or wanting to get found in Google, I would say minimum 800 words, absolute minimum. But you want to make sure that that structure and the depth of that information, that content is very clean and organized and properly optimized as well.
All right, and last one to bring us home. I have a feeling I know the answer to this one, but does someone need to know how to code in order to design their website?
No.
Perfect.
No, I mean that's why the content management system exists, and there's a number of amazing tools out there as well that are more plug and play, drag and drop. What's important if you're going to be using those tools is understanding the strategy so that you're building a site for yourself that's actually going to serve the purpose you want it to serve, educate, attract a new business, whatever it is you want it to do.
Awesome. Awesome. Perfect, Lori. Well, I tell you what, that wraps up the questions that we have for today.
All right, this was great. We look forward to seeing all of you at our next webinar. Have a
Have a
good
great
one,
day,
everyone.
everyone.